Hello and welcome back to another episode of the It's Not Orange podcast. Tonight we'll be talking about the last minute heartbreak versus Lincoln to deny Blackpool a fifth victory in a row, a hard fought draw for the away side, and we'll look deeper into that, and we'll also look ahead to Mansfield tomorrow night. It's a Friday night preview show, and joining me this evening and welcome back to the podcast is Martin. How are you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I'm good. Looking forward to Mansfield tomorrow. Not been there for a very long time. Proper old school ground. We're in good form, so it should be a good Saturday, I hope.
Yeah, and they're in good form too. Obviously, they're in the back of 4 wins in a row, just like we were. They drew their game from five games ago, and we've drawn our latest one. So we have identical forms in the last 5 games. So really important that one of us denies the other, I suppose, or it's probably got draw written all over it. But we'll see once we've spoken to the Mansfield guests. Good evening, all those in the chat. Very warm welcome to Craig, who was first in this evening. Hope you're doing well. Mike, of course. Hello, mate. Kurt, hope you're doing well, buddy. And evening, Martin from Mike. So you got your own personal evening, as I did too. So let's get straight into things. Yeah, let's get straight into things, mate. Like, how did you find Tuesday night under the lights?
Well, there was a lot of anticipation. It was great to go to Bloomfield Road, sort of, looking at that table and looking at where we were. Well, we are really, and the fact that they were up there too. It was just exciting to have a game that felt like a top of the table clash under the lights, and our record under the lights over the last few years hasn't been great. But I think all that goes out the window really with this new team set up, and it was look in its own way. It was quite an exciting game. It was just really. I was very much looking forward to it. It's a nice antidote from work, isn't it, when you've got a game to go to or game to watch on the TV? So yeah, it was just great to have a meaningful game where you feel like now we're genuine challenges.
I know the games have come thick and fast, but it felt like Tuesday night has felt like it's ages ago. I'm really looking forward to tomorrow, of course. So I know for me, on other players, it won't feel like that. But because we're enjoying the football so much, we kind of want the next game to come, despite obviously the game against Bristol being called off. And we're quite happy about that due to the squad. Evening, we 8PNE. Hope you're well. What's up, buddy? Get your comments in about how you thought the game was, obviously, as the conversation flows. But we'll start, as ever, as we do, Martin, with the lineup. So I will just share my screen so we can take a proper look as we do. So one change, really. That change probably pleased a lot of people. Let us know how you thought about Beasley coming in the chat, of course. But Martin, again, keeping with the winning side, of course, but one change in that's Beasley for Rhodes. Obviously, Kurt wanted Rhodes to play more minutes. Ironically, I thought this game would have suited him as time went on. I'm surprised to not obviously see him in. But Beasley probably supports the press a little bit more in terms of his pace.
Well, I think it's difficult, isn't it? When we've obviously seen how great Joseph and Ballard are together, and Ballard's out, we have to pick someone else in that position, and there isn't really anybody who can do that job, and that's understandable. We've got 2 really good strikers who can do that. You're hard to be able to find someone else who's like a like for like, so he has to pick someone. Rhodes, unfortunately, didn't do enough to well, he's done enough in his career to justify more starts, but on Saturday, just as a standalone, it didn't really affect the game any, and I thought he would. So I understood that Beasley was probably going to play, but yeah, there's Joseph and everybody else at the moment, isn't there? They're not on his level, and I think it shows. So yeah, fair enough. It could have been Beasley or Rhodes quite easily, or Fletcher, because as much as I'm not his biggest fan, when he came on, I thought he did make a difference, and we'll talk about it later. But he might pick to start tomorrow.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who comes in now, because he's tried Rhodes, he's tried Beasley, obviously, in this game. And will he go with Fletcher from the off after he got an assist and inches away from getting that second assist before, obviously, they equalised as well with the cross to Joseph, which we'll come on to a bit later on. But really looking forward to both sort of dissecting this game and getting the Mansfield guest on to talk about that. But I want to talk about the first half performance first and foremost, because for me, Martin, it was one of the best performances of the season. In the first 45 minutes, we had 7 shots, 5 on target, or 4 on target, I think it was. It was a barrage on their goal. And genuinely, I was shocked with how good we were and how they coped with it. And as the game went on, they got a lot better at that. However, we started like a house on fire, and I was more impressed with this performance in the first 45 than many others. That's just a personal opinion. Again, let us know how you feel about that first half. But it started quite early on with Hamilton breaking down the back line, that well-organised, resilient, resolute back line, which the Lincoln guest obviously spoke about. And in my opinion, he should have absolutely hammered it across the goal or into the corner. And in my opinion, if it goes on target, it's 1-0. After Huddersfield, maybe he needs that initial shot like he did against Huddersfield. But for me, he should have been slamming that home.
Yeah, of course he should. But that's what you get with CJ, isn't it? Never been a finisher much, a bit erratic. He's been on a good little run recently, but that's still the final bit that's always disappointed, really. But yeah, of course he should have done better with it. But again, Bruce has just identified is the fact the lad's got lightning pace, and he just runs at people for fun, and when he gets it right, it's great. But you stick with him now in that position because he has started delivering recently. But yeah, he should have done a better job of it. But luckily, the chances came thick and fast, so it didn't have too much bearing. But it would have been lovely to get an early goal because I think we deserved it, and we set about them, didn't we, with zero respect for them. We just tore into them, I thought.
Yeah, and again, I like that. I think, again, under the previous manager, I don't know when we stopped talking about the previous manager, but it's still relatively new, isn't it, with Steve Bruce? And we would respect teams, but we would keep the ball, but we wouldn't be so direct early on. And Kurt said, and a few others have said, no, I'm sure all the fans have noticed, we have the ability to switch play in a minute, in a second, in a flash. We've got players that can ping long passes. I think we're third in the league, as I've said, for accurate passes, long balls, and we know how to play the ball in behind at the right times, and that's really really important in both League One and in football, of course, because if you become predictable like we did previously, that's when you find games boring. We could have beat Burton 3-0 under Critchley, and you can imagine it was a very similar pattern of play. Whereas with Burton, when they mixed it up, we mixed it up. And against Exeter, we went long, and there's been many times against Huddersfield as well when we got the ball wide really quickly from a long pass and then broke in on the wing. So many different styles of play we've got now. It's really exciting for us to second guess what's going to come, but also for the opposition. And that proved, pivotal in that fourth minute when CJ went through. I wanted to talk about the creativity that I've just alluded to, because, as I've said, we had 7 chances. We'll go through a couple of the shots in the first half in a second, but this management team as an overall, especially Morgan shot from the corner, we've found different ways to create chances and trouble the opposition, haven't we?
It's funny because the guy in front of me said to his dad, I think it was, he sort of elbowed his dad and went, Dad, what's this? Right? They're going to roll it to Morgan. He's going to have in the top corner. And I was like, wow, has he been? I suppose it was pretty obvious, but anyway, absolutely called it absolutely perfectly, and he hit it. And I'm like, well, that's in all the way. And then, the keeper did what he did or whatever. But do you know what? We mix it up a lot, don't we? We can play. We can go long. We can go short. We can get in behind. We can play from. As League One side goes, who would have thought again that Steve Bruce would be at the helm of a sort of a team that can mix it up so much? It's incredible, really. And it must be a product of the coaching staff that he's got available to him, because they're just mixing it up. I love the fact that we can sort of play on the counter attack if we want to. We've got strength up front. We've got pace. We've got creativity. And I mean, we'll talk about him, but Evans is an absolute joke at this level. And it's just worth saying that if no one's listened to it, watch the Not the Top 20 podcast about Blackpool, where they compare how it was under Critchley and how it is now and how we're playing. It's a really, really great piece. Those two are great anyway, but they've absolutely hit the nail on the head about how we were so stifled under the previous manager, and Steve Bruce has come in, kept it simple, but also it's clever. So I just love the fact we can switch it, and the opposition just don't really know which way we're gonna play at times, and it's really good. It's just very football, simple but clever.
Yeah, and it's excuse me, it's fresh as well, wasn't it? For us, obviously, with what felt like a season, under Critchley the second time around, it was long, wasn't it? It was turgid. It was, even when we're winning games, it was quite routine. And yes, that's great, but you knew the next week it wasn't going to be the same away from home, and you were kind of dreading each performance. And will we please turn up? And when we did, it was great, and when we didn't, it was, you'd rather watch something else, and that says a lot when you're watching your football side. So I'm really enjoying the creativity. And we've just spoken about Morgan's shot, obviously, from that set piece. It was obvious to a lot of people, but not Lincoln, because they didn't react to Morgan being on the edge of the box, did they? Because they had to set up in a certain way. They didn't want to risk a man being out of the box, I suppose. I think it's a lucky save. He obviously means to make contact, but he doesn't mean for it to go through his hands and then bounce just wide of the post. Nonetheless, he made the save, and it was a decent sort of chance and a good tempo to start. The creativity soon came after, with Joseph's potential goal of the season. Good work with Coulson and Morgan in the middle of the park. What I really like about Coulson, we'll talk about Joseph in a minute. And again, please let us know how you feel Coulson played and others played during the game as we talk about it. But Coulson takes up those pockets of almost with the centre midfielder, but pushing himself up to the edge of the box. And sometimes another player will overlap, maybe a striker, but he will drift into those pockets. And what that does is, if our left back's doing that and our other players on there, they're second guessing who they're going to. And the space it made and the opportunities it made is brilliant. But also, he delivers a fantastic cross a lot of the time. And his cross to Joseph was brilliant. And Joseph obviously tries the cheekiest of back heels, one we haven't seen since the likes of Clarkson. And I'll be honest, it's a tremendous save. I think if he makes a slightly better connection on it, it flies into the bottom corner. But it obviously makes a good connection. Keeper makes a hell of a save. But again, it highlights how well we've been playing and highlights the confidence that Joseph's got at the moment.
Absolutely. And, again, transformed, isn't he? He's a completely different player. He's trying things. He's making runs that he didn't. I mean, he was always working hard obviously last season, but it wasn't clicking. And I do think it's a system. I think the system now is he knows his role. And he again, the guys around me were sort of saying they're just so impressed with how the kid, he said, Joseph must be knackered, what he said in front of me. He must be knackered, that lad. He never stops running. And he just doesn't stop running. He's superb. He's just one of those players that you think, he's got the lot, hasn't he now? And you can see why he was so highly thought of. But the runs he makes, he's just excited, gets off his seat. He's more than a centre forward. He's a unit as well, and he's quick, and he's just got a lot in his locker, and he's just as likely to give you an assist as to score one. And we need to do well, because we've got one or two players here that people come sniffing after. You know what football's like. As soon as somebody hits the straps and starts doing well, people start putting numbers on it, and we've got to be really careful that we don't get too many bids, but we're going to, because if we keep him and Apter and people like that keep playing like that, there's going to be interest. So we need to take full advantage of it. But it's just great to see a centre forward who's had a difficult time being the main man that everyone looks to and expects him to score. That expectation is everything, isn't it? Knowing that he's dangerous, will probably deliver the goods. It's just brilliant, and he looks great in that tangerine shirt. He absolutely fits the shirt properly. He's a proper Blackpool player, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I know you don't literally mean you expect him to score every game, but I think we're just enjoying who he is, and when he scores, it's even better for the fans. Like, we're not expecting he has to score this game like with Jordan Rhodes. We're like, we're going to expect him to score. I just like the way he encourages everything forward. He's obviously got a new lease of life. He's found his fitness. He's worked hard pre-season. He's reaping the rewards of that. Tomorrow, we can feel free to give it one big go again, and then we've got a little bit of a break, which is fantastic. And I think they will do that tomorrow. I don't expect anything less, of course. I think we tired at the end of this game, of course, but I think they'll know tomorrow that they've got a little bit of a break. And they can give it their all for one final week. Fingers crossed he stays fit, because someone who does that sort of running was in the same ilk of Lavery the first time around, and Yates, when they used to do a lot of running and stretch themselves. And as I think Mike's alluded to, he's running over 10K a game, just over 6 miles, in a game is extraordinary for short bursts, short sprints, whilst being a centre forward as well. So you're absolutely right. He adds a lot more than just being a centre forward as well. BFC Craig has put Coulson from foot to his feet is so quick. Completely agree. He can have 3 men around him and he'll do a 1-2 of his feet and drift the ball wide, won't he? And then run into space. I actually really enjoyed him under Critchley. I think he really suited, both a 3-5-2, 5-3-2, as well as he is enjoying the back four. I think he was one of the real positives from last year, hence why Critchley wanted to sign him again and play him in that system. But he suits the back four as just as much. So I think, once again, like we've found a gem. He is ours. And just your point on people like Apter and Joseph, the club have done really good work to secure their contracts, haven't they? And we will get good money for them if they do ever want to go. But whilst they're playing the way we are and we're pushing forward, as much as we are, and playing under the manager of course, Steve Bruce, that for me is enough for these players to enjoy their football again. So, we'll see how the land lies with that. Evening, Matt, and evening, Super Jazz. I hope you're both well. Moving on to the next one then. What other chances in the game? I think we had the Joseph shot, and I think there was. I wanted to talk about their keeper. Basically, obviously made a few good saves, but also the controversial point of McGrandle still being on the pitch in the game. Obviously, makes a horrific challenge against Gabriel, wasn't it? Was it Gabriel? Yeah, or Coulson?
It was.
I can't remember. One or two.
Well,
that alone was horrifically mistimed, wasn't it? And the referee pulled the yellow out straight away. And the second one was towards the end of the first half, where he does no intention of winning the ball and he slams into the back of Casey or whoever it was, with no intention to win the ball. He knows exactly what he's doing, and the ref kind of immediately pulls him to one side because he knows what he's done. Should have been a red card for you. Should have been a red card in the chat. Let us know. But for me, he's absolutely bottled it, and it was an effect of him being substituted at half time as well.
He always tried to be nice about referees as much as he can, but I'm afraid that I think he was getting to do something about that, and he realised he'd already booked him and thought, I better not do that. And it just says it all that obviously, Lincoln took him off at half time. Why else would you do it? Because he was a walking red card, wasn't he? He was a lucky boy, and they probably thought, well, off you come now, and you don't get, you're not going to get that suspension. If he'd have stayed on the pitch, he'd have been off in the second half at some point. I mean, he's got a bit of reputation for being a walking yellow card, hasn't he, McGrandles? I think we were linked with him under the who shall not be named, because he's definitely a sort of player. He's a hack merchant. Of course he should have gone. He should have gone in the. I thought the referee was going to book him until he realised he already had one, and thought, no, I'll just get the card and book it. And I think he bottled it too. I completely agree with you. So that was not good, because I would like to have seen what we'd have done to them with 45 minutes of 10 men rather than 20.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk about Lincoln in a second as well, but in your opinion in the chat as well, let us know. But that first half for me, was it our best performance in the first sort of 45 than you've seen under Bruce so far this season? The energy was there. And you think if Morgan shot, Joseph shot, and a few others went in, we're 2-3-0 up at half time, it wouldn't have been a misjustice, would it? We also had Gabriel's effort in the end of the first half, which obviously literally slammed the ball at the keeper. He obviously made himself fairly big and blocked the shot. But as I said, 7 shots, I think 4 or 5 on target in that first half, 70% possession, effective possession. For me, it was maybe a taster of things to come, because I still think Bruce alludes to the fact that we need to get better. And it actually scares me to the point that we haven't got the squad to probably do that yet. But when he's players he wants on him, hopefully with a bit of fitness behind him, it gives us the indication that he expects a bit more out of this team.
I think you're right. And I think as well, it's hard to gauge whether it's our best performance. On paper, Lincoln are the best team we played because of the league position, I guess. Although Charlton, obviously, and Huddersfield were doing well when we played them, but they've funnily enough gone on a really funny run since. But I was disappointed with Lincoln, and as Kurt said, we've been too nice. I mean, I did the Lincoln preview, and I was saying, it's great that you're up there, and I think you're a really good team. Only probably because of the results, and I've seen 1 or 2 of the games, but they looked terrible. They looked a bottom 4 side who couldn't get to grips with us at all. And I couldn't work out whether it's because we have become so good so very quickly, or they just had an off night, probably somewhere in the middle. But I think the Huddersfield first half for me was brilliant because of the way we went 2-0 up at a difficult place to go away from home. I think that first half was the best half at home by quite a while. Burton was. You got to look at Burton. They're down there for a reason, aren't they? They're a decent football inside, but maybe not very strong. Lincoln, I'm sure they've had better days than Saturday, than Tuesday. They will produce better performances. That they must have done to go 13 matches unbeaten away from home they can't play. If they played like that every week, they would come a cropper. But I'm sure it was just an off night for them. But I found them very negative and a little bit backward, to be honest. But yeah, and Matt's right. They got what they came for, definitely.
Yeah, we'll move on to the second half then. Individually, we haven't got a lot of time to talk about these performances. We'll go for a few players towards the end. Craig's waiting for us nicely in the background to talk about Mansfield. I'm sure he's eager to do that as well with the run they're on. But the second half became a little bit scrappy. And we talk about the second half, we had 70% possession in the second half, 71% possession. They had 29%. Of course, they ended up having 8 shots with 2 on target, but 5 of those shots came in the last 10 minutes. But they took the last 4 shots of the game, which, highlighted probably what we did after the red card. But if we move on to that red card then, because it was a catalyst for obviously Blackpool turning the screw a little bit. Jackson's first yellow card was stupid. I think it was a bad tackle, wasn't it? And then the second one, if he didn't learn from a Grandal, was just absolutely flies through the back of Blackpool player, and immediately, he has to go. The ref hasn't got a choice on that one. He couldn't survive. And, I spoke to a couple of Lincoln fans, and I just said, like, if that was my play, if that was Evans, or if that was Norburn, if that was Gabriel, I called him idiotic. He actually said Jackson's their nicest player. And, Skubala said he wants their team to be a little rough and tumble. But all the way through the game, they were making these horrible tackles. And I don't know whether I've now slept on it. And again, let us know how you feel. They just came to be an absolute pig of a team, and they were. They made horrible fouls. They played quite poor football. They organised themselves to frustrate us. And after that first half, you could just feel it. Maybe I didn't see the goal coming for us, but I thought it was going to be one of those games where they won 1-0 because it was just. I think it was Stoke. Do you remember Stoke at home when they won 1-0 and Fletcher scored after making that horrendous challenge on Gabriel?
Yes, I remember. Yeah.
He should have been red carded, and then he scored a goal, and we just couldn't get that goal all night. And it felt like that sort of game. However, we stuck to the game plan. We did play really well. We'll come on to the substitutions in a minute, obviously, because one of them is very important. But the more the game went on, we didn't kind of sit back until the goal, but it was we let them grow into the game. And now I've slept on it, I actually thought they grew really well into the game and started to make the right substitutions at exactly the right time. Obviously, even as soon as the red card happens, they bring on the goal scorer Hamer to shore up their tactics and play the same way. But the more the game went on, we had to find a different way to play, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. We expressed ourselves quite a lot, very creative in the first half, and then second half it was more about being a battle. And I'll tell you now that, again, under the previous regime, without dwelling on it too much, I think we'd have lost that game 1-0 anyway. I think we'd have run out of steam. They would have nicked one from a corner early, or even in that last minute, and it would have ended up 1-0, I think. But we did stick to it, and we've got players that are up for the fight as well, which is great. And Fletcher came on and battled away, and to me, he offered more in those 20 minutes or 25 minutes than Beasley did in the whole game for me. And we got our just desserts in the end, and then you just hope that we're just going to go and see it out 1-0 or maybe even add to it. Because even at that point, I couldn't see them scoring until 4 or 5 minutes after we did, and then they all of a sudden, I don't know. I think, well, they didn't have anything to lose, did they? Really, they should have been 3-0 down at half time. They were still in the game and they had nothing to lose, and they started chucking balls in the box, and we didn't react to it at all. We didn't cope with it well, did we? At all. We didn't handle it well.
Not at the end, I think. And Steve Bruce has alluded to the fact that we were vulnerable from set pieces, and I think we look fairly solid, but at the same time, they were turning the screw. And some of the Lincoln fans said that, Jake said they deserved a point. You could argue that based on after the goal, they might have, just did enough to score. The XG said we both should have scored one. But yeah, we should have been out of sight, and we paid the price, and it was a sickener, don't get me wrong. But I think overall, you've just got to face the facts that it was one of those games where we did enough. It just didn't fall for us. But Fletch came on. What I really liked about that, again, early substitution, he could see Beasley wasn't having an impact on the game. And for me, it's one of those weeks. I hate to say it, I hate to call out any Blackpool player, but he was just appalling for me, Beasley. And when I said this before, when he's good, you really notice his impact, his little runs, his flick-ons. When he's bad, we're playing with 10 men. It also felt like that with Rhodes at some points, and he touched the ball like 12 times, Rhodes, but Beasley was, whilst I thought he'd be good for the press, he didn't really offer a significant amount up front. And Ballard is that, that piece of the puzzle we've been missing somewhat, to make us a concealed unit to do that press and attack in the right way.
Yeah, I think that's the problem that, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later, is that our best players are on the pitch generally, aren't they? And we've got numbers for that squad depth, but the actual quality. And I felt, this is what I was saying about we didn't handle it well. I thought when we made our subs as well, we didn't look after the football. We had a couple of chances where we could have got up the pitch and and killed the game a little bit, and we didn't. We just gave it away in stupid areas. But had maybe other people been on the pitch instead of them, they wouldn't have wasted the ball. And I think it just goes that not many League One sides have got unbelievable quality in every position. You're only looking at Birmingham, who've probably got that. And I just think it just showed what we've got is, to be honest, a little bit of dead wood in our squad when the very best aren't available or aren't fit or have to be substituted or whatever. So that's where we're at, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that, and we can't do much about it, can we? Apart from sign obviously Onoma, which we've done this week, and then January can come and we can really build, potentially a much bigger and better squad. Fingers crossed, of course, we're still there or thereabouts. Fletch came on 63 minutes, then added a little bit more hold-up play, a bit more pace, and we had the perfect opportunity straight after the red card with the cross into the box. I already was out of my seat celebrating. It wasn't a good finish, and I think I'm going to donate my £50 to the Children's Hospital charity that I made with the podcast group about him getting 10 goals this season. It was a finish that most strikers, maybe even Beasley, probably Rhodes, almost definitely Rhodes, probably Joseph with the form is in, scores. I think it's 9 out of 10. He probably scores it as well. But this is the third or fourth chance Fletcher's had. I remember Wickham at home. Do you remember at the back post? He puts it wide. Stockport, he had a chance, puts it wide at the back post as well.
Yeah.
Scored one goal, which was obviously the press from against Crawley, hit into him. I was desperate. And Jordan Hayes said last week, I think, we were desperate for him not to get banned, but the penalty miss at Burton could have been the catalyst, that goal, for him to kick on and score even more, because at that point he was really finding his feet, wasn't he? Really good performance against Cambridge. Wickham was a decent performance until we got banned, obviously, after the game. And then he's come back and, I'll give him a start before you really judge him. But for Blackpool to get promotion and keep pushing up that table, that's the exact chance at that exact moment to rip the roof off Bloomfield Road, and obviously take his chance. But alas, it was a horrendous miss.
Yeah, it was. And look, I don't know. I suppose you can't carry on missing those sort of chances, but it seems that if you look at his record, he just doesn't score very many goals. Like we said, that's the worrying thing. But you know what? As that message just said on the screen, then he did make up for it with the assist. He is a handful, and if you've got your front two like Ballard and Joseph playing together, and you do need to make a substitution, he's a very good person to bring on and cause a bit of trouble. I do think against Burton when he came on, he barely won a header in his little cameo appearance. He needs to be better than that. But Lincoln was significantly better despite the miss. And I think he's deceptively quick. He's got a bit of more pace about him than people realise. And he's clearly, like somebody said on our podcast chat, and it was right, he's quite a good footballer, but not a good striker. I understand what they meant by that now, the more I've seen him. He has got a footballing brain from a higher level, but he hasn't got he doesn't seem to have the technique to finish chances. And there's loads of strikers like that. The EFL's full of them.
Well, I think Stockton had that year. Danilo Orsi, obviously, there's a few others that we've witnessed just this year alone that think after one season they're going to be outstanding, then kind of find their feet again. So one thing I will say about the goal, and when I watched the game back, he actually comes from between the halfway line and their box, and he drifts into the box really well, and he makes the run at a perfect time. So, let's say next time he gets that chance, he slams at home, and it can be a catalyst for a season. But you're right, he is mobile. He certainly has pace to him. The goal then, we'll talk about him, because the ball forward to him, it looked an outstanding pass. And I think Matt said in the podcast chat that someone has watched the game back, or there's been an assessor on the game, and actually it was onside. People saying it's miles offside, watch the game back. There's a left back obviously higher up the pitch, and when he receives the ball, he's in between obviously the right back and him breaking away for the goal. Where their centre back was, I haven't got a clue. Here we go. Matt's here. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. I had confirmation from the ref's assessor. Fletch was onside. I was near enough with it in the West, and I thought it was at least a yard offside. So every credit to the linesman. Remember against Portsmouth when it hit? Was it hit Beasley or Hamilton? One of the two, and we thought it was offside. Karamoko's shot, wasn't it? As came off Beasley's head. We thought that was a yard offside, but that was on. Sometimes in the moment it just looks worse, but again, onside. His movement, the little jink, obviously on the right hand side, and he finds Joseph extraordinarily well. It looks a simple goal, but a Hamilton in the past, a few other players in the past, maybe wouldn't have made that pass. So every credit to him to get his head down, keep pushing forward. And obviously, again, easy finish, but the fact that Jobs is in the form he's in, he makes it look really well because he's got to just get it from under his feet and tap it under the keeper. But the perfect time to score considering we've just missed that sitter.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a lot of relief in the stadium when that went in, and I think it is a good finish under a bit of pressure, and they're the sort of chances that last season, if he did get one of those, he would have missed that, and that's just confidence, isn't it? And just being that main man up front and delivering the goods. But it was a lovely goal. It's just a pity they just didn't build on it, but it was just the relief of it because you thought, well, they're going to have to come and score 2 to take maximum points here, and they didn't look like scoring 1. So that first goal's massive in a game like that. It's huge. It's absolutely huge, and we had to get it really. So as I say, I think last season in a game like that, even at home, we might not have. It might have just petered out into a 0-0. So yeah, fair credit to him because I think he's been given the goal against Charlton, hasn't he? So is that his 5th now? That's pretty good.
Yes,
really.
Blackpool Football Club. It's Joseph's 5th goal and 7 unbeaten, not Joseph's 4th goal and 9 unbeaten. Just our official Twitter, just our official account, guys. Come on. We've played 9 games this season. If we haven't lost all season, then why is Critchley still not here? So,
I know.
That's what I thought. If we're 9
thank
unbeaten,
thank God it's not 9.
Yeah, true.
Exactly.
Look, I'll talk about a couple of more things before we bring Craig. Thanks for waiting patiently, mate. I want to talk about Joseph once. Joseph, I want to talk about Fletch once again because he found himself on the left-hand side about 5 minutes after the goal. Again, gets the ball played to him. And again, this is what I talk about with this system, with Coulson sort of dipping into the central role a little bit, finding space. Fletch did the same thing. He found himself at the opposite side of the box where he assisted from. Again, takes it past the defender. And I'll be honest, he chips a fantastic ball into Joseph. I don't know if it's too high or I don't know if Joseph jumps too late or too early. It skims the top of his head into an empty net. And I was at that point, I was like, what a ball. And he just misses his head. And that at 2-0, obviously, not only sends the North, I don't know, crashes the North down with the atmosphere and the fans coming down from it, but it wraps up all 3 points. But as in talk about Critch, the moments in the game, it went just above his head and he missed the opportunity, of course. We've not missed it, but he obviously missed his head and we didn't get the second. And in my opinion, on that point is when they made a couple of more substitutions and they started to grow into the game. And we talk about, obviously, those moments we missed that. We bring on Embleton and Carey. In my opinion, it's easy for me to say in hindsight, and it's easy for any Blackpool fan to say in hindsight, but was that the right decision with 3 or 4 minutes to go to change the centre of the park and obviously the shape out wide with Embleton really not being able to find his feet in recent weeks?
I think he just expected those players to deliver some fresh legs. But the problem is, I don't think Embleton just looks a shadow of how I remember him and how Sunderland fans know he can be. But he's only getting cameo appearances. But he just doesn't. I don't know what he's offering us or where his best position is right now. I can't figure it out. And Sonny Carey, unfortunately, he is just that enigma. He has the odd good game and he can fire one in from sort of 20 yards, and you think, oh, he's back and he's got the but. Just very wasteful on the ball. And again, it's just like I said before, without labouring it, it just goes to show that when you bring 2 players like that on, they're just not of the sufficient quality. It's just it's impossible. You can't have that massive quality running through the squad, can you? But having said that, I think it was Sonny Carey who got the ball at one point, and I thought, right, it's a simple, and he just knocked it straight out of play, and they were back on the attack again, and we were retreating a little bit, and it's like, no, somebody with their proper thinking head on does something better with that, and it relieves the pressure. And I just thought we invited it probably with those subs. but I don't. I think Bruce should expect better from the people he brings on, rather than look at himself. To be honest with you, see it out, handle it,
Yeah,
cope with
I'm
it.
not blaming Bruce.
But you know,
It
no,
probably is the decision making. You're right, because obviously Carey could have hoofed the ball down the pitch and we would have won 1-0. Obviously, that caused them to be on the attack. That causes the corner. That causes, arguably a foul on Fletcher. Tyra maybe coming out a little closer to the player heads it in. Ultimately, they kept themselves in the game. We sat back, I think, because of fatigue. I think maybe not scared to not get the win, but because the game was so relentless, we thought we did it somewhat against Burton, a little bit against Exeter, and we paid the price eventually. It's just we sat back earlier against Exeter, they scored earlier. We sat back later against Lincoln, and they found the goal. And Bruce has said we look vulnerable by set pieces. Not that you can sort of negate Exeter's goal, because that was an unbelievable free kick, but for me, it's the same 11 for the last 5 games, isn't it? That we've relied on to do a job,
yeah.
and even previous to Critch, we were playing the similar 11. So, and after sort of Blackburn, etc., we haven't got that. I think Sunday League players know to deal with the ball with 2 minutes to go, and I think is fuming after the game, if I'm honest, because that should have been a routine 1-0 win, as much as it would be a crazy game. But I do respect Lincoln a lot. I think Skubala started to manage the game a lot better than Bruce in terms of turning the screw on us a little bit, and we didn't react to that as players. After that Joseph sort of miss, I thought they grew really well into the game, and they took, out of the last 7 shots, they took 5 of them. And that bit of pressure, eventually, the river didn't run wet anymore, and they got their goal. And you could say that that's football, that, it was deserved. We didn't make decisions in those moments, and we missed key chances in terms of Fletcher's miss and the keeper making good saves. So overall, you could probably say well-earned point. If it was in the 85th minute, you'd accept it a little bit more as the fact as last kick of the game. Yeah, I think what Bruce needs to work on and what we need to work on is, Matt, I know you're in the chat listening to me. Let me just say this out loud. Husband is a good defender. His defending stats were excellent. His statistics when he came on were good. What I don't like is I think he hamstrings us in terms of, he gets the ball, he still traps it and looks for the backward pass across the line almost immediately. It's kind of like when Critch was manager, just what all the defenders did. And when he picks the ball up, his first thought is to go long. I think he played 2 out of 13 long balls in this game alone, just to highlight his continuously poor long balls. 2 out of 13 again when he comes on. When Coulson plays those 1-2s, he gets into the box. They are different players. They're asked to different jobs. But the fact that Husband came on, he defended okay, but doesn't give us that attacking outlet. Carey comes on, gives the ball away for the goal, and adds to the capitulation a little bit. And Embleton just looks unfit. Like you say, we need to bring on players that can do the similar jobs. I just, with 5 minutes to go, would have kept it the same. And, it's 5 minutes more. We had good shape. They were hurting us, but I don't know what Carey would have done to get up to pace with the game. And ultimately, that was evident. So, look, a point's fair. It continues the unbeaten run. And I think overall we can be happy with what Bruce has done since he's come in. Obviously, 13 points from 15, and
absolutely.
we look stronger, we look imaginative, and we look like we can beat most teams. Another one of those teams in form is, of course, Mansfield. We're going to move on to the preview now of the Mansfield game. And Craig, we are going to talk about your excellent start to the season and other things. But first and foremost, I know we've spoken pre-pod, and thank you for joining us this evening and waiting so patiently. How are you first and foremost?
A pleasure. Thanks for having us on. Yeah, really good. Glad to be playing you guys again. It's been a fair few seasons, so looking forward to it. Looking forward to the reverse fixture as well, because I think it falls on quite a significant date for most Mansfield fans. So they tick two birds with one stone, I think, in the reverse fixture. Football and a nice weekend away for Valentine's. So it's all good. But yeah, very happy and looking forward to seeing you guys come down tomorrow and welcoming the return of a certain Mr. Hamilton.
Yeah, of course, he's the enigma that he is, but looking a lot better this season. Of course, you enjoyed good times under CJ. We spoke pre-pod. I think it's really important. Got a few hundred listening to this, and a lot of them are going to the game. Martin's going to the game tomorrow, and someone made me aware on our message board of a fundraiser that they saw on YouTube. So I had to check that out. But I wanted to hear it straight from a Mansfield fan about what tomorrow signifies and what your club's trying to do outside the ground.
Yeah, so it's actually a friend of mine. A few years ago, I was commentating on the local radio and had a co-commentator alongside me called Lee Wilson, who's an ex-Stags player. I didn't actually know at the time when I met him that actually 4 or 5 months earlier, he sadly had lost his daughter Evie. And he was supported by a lot of his friends and did a charity football match. And it sort of was to raise money for the family and things like that. And Lee's the type of guy that didn't want it, didn't want to accept it. But his daughter Evie, all through her life, always sort of gave her pocket money to help others and local causes and things like that. And sort of the idea was sort of sparked from there. Really, he wanted to set up a charity in her name called the Lashes Foundation, and they now give out grants to local people, and they've done a lot of grants over the last 4 years. They're one of the most rapidly growing charities in our region, and tomorrow is all about that. So all throughout the ground, you'll see a lot of Evie's friends who have obviously grown up with her collecting money for the charity. They'll be there on the day, so anything that anyone can spare, it all goes to local good causes and helping those in need. And I'm not a parent myself, but I think, anybody that is will know that no parent should ever have to outlive their kids. It's a horrible thing to do. I met Lee when he was probably at one of the lowest points of his life, and I think subconsciously getting to football gave him a bit of an outlet, and he was able to deal with a lot of his sort of grief and sort of going through the process of setting up the charity through going to watch football. It's always been close to his heart, and the football family continues to really, really highlight what he does. Earlier on in the season, in pre-season, there was supposed to be a cricket match between his charity, which was his friends, and the first team. Nigel Clough, like his dad, loves a bit of cricket, but rain stopped play, unfortunately. So this is sort of the follow-up to that, really. It's a dedicated game for the Lashes Foundation. They'll be plastered everywhere. So please, if you go into the game tomorrow and you've got £1 or a fiver or whatever it is that you can spare, chuck it in the bucket and really help to support a local good cause, and which then goes on and on and on to help those who are really in need.
Yeah, it sounds both emotional and obviously a great thing that the Mansfield family and the football family are doing. So, is there a GoFundMe also if fans are not at the game?
Yeah, there is. So if you just search for the lashesfoundation.co.uk, there's a donate link on there. There's also a little shop as well. And what was quite poignant actually was that actual season, to bring it to a head, we played Port Vale in the in the playoff final at Wembley, and obviously the same season, Darryl Clark, the then Port Vale manager, went through a very similar thing with his own daughter.
Yeah.
And on the day of the game, he was wearing a Lashes Foundation pin badge, and he's actually one of the people I think that's received a little bit of support and things like that as well. So, tomorrow on the pitch, it is just a game, isn't it? Football's a bigger thing. It's more than a win, a loss, or a draw. It brings people together, and even if tomorrow you need a bit of a chat to someone, maybe you're going through something similar, the guys from the Lashes Foundation, the more senior ones, obviously not the younger ones who are collecting, feel free to have a chat with them as well, because they will pinpoint you in the right direction. Whether you're from Blackpool, Plymouth, wherever it is, if you need help, that's what those guys are there for.
Awesome, and we'll do our we won't do our best. We will share the link, and I will post some money from the podcast as well. And it's a great charity. So yeah, we'll move on to the football then, and we'll post, as I say, about the charity as well after. Talk to us then. You've already said his name, Mr. Clough. Obviously, a massive name in football. Been your manager for a few years now. Been very successful, of course, as you'd expect with the heritage. But just talk to us about what he's brought to your football club and how he's risen you through the leagues again.
I think it's not an underestimate. It's not an understatement to say that Nigel Clough has saved Mansfield Town. Really, he's really regalvanised us and put us back on the right track. Obviously, at the end of the COVID season, when it was all curtailed, Graham Coughlin was the manager, who was appointed from Bristol Rovers, and he came up to take the job because he lived in Sheffield and it was closer to home for him. It wasn't a footballing decision whatsoever. And it just really, really, we were in a really bad state. We were pretty much bottom of the league. We couldn't win a game. We could barely score a goal. And Nigel Clough comes in and does what he's done historically. He cleared the budget out. He got rid of the players that were on stupid money. He brought in his trusted players and slowly but surely really got us playing. And, at the end of that COVID season, we were sort of mid-table. We were all right. And then the season after, when fans were allowed back in, we went on that run, got to the playoff final, and we've always been there or thereabouts. And then last season, of course, we finally got promotion. He's a manager that will be very, very difficult to replace. And I think a lot of Mansfield fans, as much as we are enjoying these good times at the moment, we are all baffled to see us in third place in League One, but we're loving it all the same. But I think deep down we know that we've not got long left of Nigel Clough in terms of his longevity, in terms of his career. He's made no secret of the fact that he wants to retire and spend more time with his wife and his family. In fact, at the back end of last season, he probably timed it wrong, to be fair. We held a fans forum, and someone asked, what's next for Nigel Clough? What happens beyond this season? And he basically said, if we don't get promoted, that's it. I pass it on to somebody else. And if we do, I take my 1 year of my 1 year clause, and then we'll see where we're at the end of next season. So I think we're all subconsciously preparing for it to be the end. But I think he's put us back on the right track. And as fans now, it's what every football fan dreams of, isn't it? A little bit of success, elevating yourself to the next level, and just trying to sort of consolidate your place and, go on another journey, another trajectory.
It might be 2027 and Mansfield in the Premier League and Clough can't retire.
Because he's got the add-on clause all the way through. Yeah, I love that.
Just a year extension. Champions League final, everything.
It's been a great story. You've had obviously a really good start to the season, following on from last season. And last season you were in a league with some teams that had some money to spend, but you also, your owners are not short of a few quid, especially at sort of League Two level, and you're able to compete. So is it the fact that is it purely momentum, do you think, or what do you put the start of the season down to? Because you're obviously on a really good run, like us, 5 unbeaten, but in a really good place, and there must be a hell of a feel good factor.
It really is. And to be honest, the money side of things is completely irrelevant. Yes, our owners have got a little bit of money, but actually we don't spend it in the transfer market. Nigel Clough and his brother Simon are very astute in the transfer market. And actually, if you look back historically over all the transfer windows that we've had, we've probably only paid for 4 or 5 players. And even this season, all of the signings that we've brought in have been on freeze, except for one, Will Evans, who we of course brought from Newport. So a lot of it is down to just recruitment, getting the right players, and most importantly, getting the players who want to play under the Nigel Clough banner and understand his way of playing, and who've brought into the longer term project. And then it is momentum. You can go all the way back to that playoff season. We were hurting a little bit, and at the start of the following season, we tried to play a 3-5-2 and it wasn't quite working because we didn't have the right personnel to play the system correctly. And we had a little bit of a stuttering start and went to Northampton, got battered. And Nigel Clough has said that was the game that he thought about walking away and sort of handing it on to someone else. And then something clicked. We changed system again. We got some players that we were chasing in the summer and in the January transfer window, and had some momentum. Finished 1 goal outside the playoffs, and then we just carried that on into the following season. There were ups and downs, but we always felt from the very first whistle last season that something good was going to happen. And this season, it's been pretty much the same. I think everybody felt like losing Davies Keeler-Dunn would be a massive blow to us. In actual fact, it's done us a huge favour. It's netted us a shed load of cash, which we can invest back into the club. It won't go into the transfer market. It'll go into improving other areas of the club, but that's fine. But what it also has done, it means that we've got nobody to play that role, which meant we've got to change system. And actually changing that system, it's stopped us leaking stupid goals like we were doing in the first few games of the season. The Lincoln game was a prime example of that. And we've sort of just carried on that momentum, and we've got a little bit of belief in us now. We're under no illusions, guys, that it's at some point it's going to all come tumbling down and we're going to go on a bad run. But with Nigel Clough, you learn very quickly that you cannot look ahead to December, January. The only thing you can look ahead to is your next game. And he's very, very good at holding his emotion and really keeping you grounded. He's a fantastic manager for that. And I think actually you'll get a little bit of that with Steve Bruce as time goes on as well. It's all been about patience for Mansfield Town, and that's where we are. And hopefully, you guys do the same with Steve Bruce. I think it'll be a fantastic battle on Saturday between 2 very experienced managers.
Yeah, just talk to us about your results then, because you're absolutely right there. As well as the exciting football and the wins we're making, they are 2 very extremely experienced managers. So it'll be nice to see how they cancel each other out tomorrow. But you've scored 2 goals in your last 4 games, isn't it? You get back-to-back clean sheets. You've looked very resolute and organised, but also quite productive up front as well. Talk to us about your results, because Crawley, the game recently played, obviously with a last minute goal to double the lead. Crawley, like a lot of times this season, like they did against Bolton last week, they seem to be creating a lot of chances, but just not having that quality to finish. And against yourselves, I think they had like 14 shots, something like 10 on target, something like that. But you were obviously, better at scoring goals at the end of the day, and you won the game. So have you been in most of your games this season? Have you seen points where you looked fairly vulnerable? Has it been quite consistent in terms of your performances?
We've definitely showed vulnerabilities. We've had a lot of injuries as well. I mean, I've got a list in front of me of players that are out. There's 8 or 9 players that are all, you would say, would be starting 11 players who are just on the injury bench and in the medical room. And we started the season really well. I think playing on the Friday night helped away at Barnsley, and we had a little bit of a boost. It's quite ironic now that Davis Keeler-Dunn was obviously touted to sign for them before the game, and he was announced in our starting lineup. Didn't really do anything. You can see why now. But we went on and won that game, and that gave us a bit of a boost in the first game of the season. But we did see a few vulnerabilities then. We didn't quite match the pace of the division. We were still sort of playing in the old system from last season. And then we've just sort of gone on, and realistically, only probably the Burton game, which finished 3-3, and the Lincoln game where we got beat quite heavily, was the one where we showed our vulnerable side and where we were quite weak. The timing of the goals against Lincoln, 2 just before the half-time whistle and then 2 just after the break, really killed it off in that game. It was probably a lot closer than the scoreline suggests, but it highlighted that we were a little bit weak defensively and sort of with players getting in behind. But whilst that was happening, we were still having players on the pitch who couldn't get through 90 minutes because they'd been out injured. Elliot Hewitt missed the majority of last season. He was the player of the season the year before, and he's had to sort of come in and play because of other people sort of being injured. He's not quite match fit. So it gets to sort of 60, 70 minutes and his fatigue just absolutely drops. But we're starting to pick that up now. And the biggest thing over the last 2 or 3 games, we're probably unlucky to concede in our last home game against Shrewsbury. And then we go away to Northampton, and Christy Pym has the game of his life between the sticks for us. We keep a clean sheet, which we needed. And then at Crawley, we just follow it up. I felt a little bit for them. It was a horrible night conditions-wise. They've got a new manager watching. They didn't step up to the level that they wanted. Like you say, we were just clinical at the right times, but we're still playing with a lot of square pegs in round holes and players who don't naturally play in that position. And it'd be interesting to see how we get on attacking-wise on Saturday, because Lee Gregory has been the difference in attack. And unfortunately for us, he went off injured at half-time on Tuesday and looks unlikely to feature tomorrow.
Oh, no.
What a shame, I know.
As long as it's not too bad and he's back. If he's back next week, that's fine.
Yeah, hopefully it's just a week out, mate. You've got international break potential to look forward to as well. Don't worry. No, you've already alluded to it, and I'm under no illusions that I've said this before with League One. Any team can put a string together and be challenging. There's been lots of teams in the past sort of 5 or 6 years in League One. Your Leyton Orients last year putting a run together, pressing. You've had Stevenage, you've had other teams in the past. Northampton even went on a run last year where they looked like they were 8th or 9th, and they haven't got a big squad, so they eventually died out, of course. So I'm not saying you'll be there or thereabouts, but you've got the right manager with the right squad, and like you say, when players come back, there's no reason why you're not being able to build on this foundation as well. Talk to me about your key players, because I'm really intrigued with your squad. You've already mentioned Lee Gregory, of course, which was a very good signing for League One. I know he's getting on a bit now, but it's a fantastic experience. You've got Oshalaya, Bacchus, I think you've got McLaughlin and Will Evans, who was fantastic at Newport. All those players, yes, probably won't fit in a playoff winning team or a top 2 side, but a few of those players I've mentioned in there would fit in most squads in League One. And I think you've done an excellent and shrewd job at building a very good squad at League One level.
I think it's the adaptability which is the key for Nigel Clough. You mentioned a lot of them there. Keanu Bacchus sadly hasn't quite lit the world alight yet for Mansfield, because he's still trying to find his feet and trying to find his position. The poor lad's had to play right wing back for the last couple of games because we've been that short on players, so he's been a little bit stifled with that. But he has shown glimpses of his quality, so I think once he finds his feet, he'll be really decent to get that going. And then I think you just look at other players. Lewis Reed's been a revelation for us. He has taken the captain's armband since Aidan Flint's been out, and he's relished that role quite well. He sort of sits in front of the back three, marshals it quite well, and is a feisty little player as well. Stephen Quinn is about 90 now. God bless him, Uncle Steve. We call him Uncle Stephen because his nephew Ben is also in the side. We signed him in the summer from Celtic, so it's Uncle Stephen. Wow. But his enthusiasm, he plays like a 15-year-old on acid. He's great. He loves the club. He bleeds amber and blue. He's fantastic for us. But I think that the key player for us is Christy Pym, because at this level you need a decent goalkeeper. He's been there around there at this level a lot. He's shown his quality at times for us, and he's grown and grown and grown season upon season. And for me, he's one of the best goalkeepers in League One and League Two. So he's really showing his decency. Unfortunately, probably our most talented players and the ones to watch, and the ones who will make a massive difference are going to be missing. The only one that might feature tomorrow, the one that I would say watch out for because he's got a point to prove, is George Maris, but he's been out for a long time. He was injured in pre-season. Some 19-year-old from Leicester cropped him in a behind closed doors game. He's been out since. He's played like 2 minutes off the bench. So I think what we've got quite well is a squad that can sit anywhere. And I think that the one which will baffle you the most, and I'll prepare you guys for it, is looking at a player with number 9 on his back playing at left side centre back. Jordan Bowery is an absolute god. He's obviously been there and done it as a striker at the very top level. And under Nigel Clough, he's not really had the opportunities he wanted up front, but he's that type of player that's brought into the Nigel Clough mantra. He plays right back, he plays right wing back, left wing back, and sits in at centre half. And you know what? He does a superb job. And this season, for the first time, when you go on the website and all the players are listed under their position, it says defenders, Jordan Bowery, and yet he still wears number 9. It is genius. Love it.
That is very good.
Do you know what? I've signed Jordan Bowery many times on Football Manager as a squad player, and he's one of those names that you just remember. But what I was going to ask you was, from a fan's point of view, because I'm going tomorrow and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm a bit older than Tom, as he often reminds me. And I first started watching Blackpool in the sort of late 80s, early 90s. And Mansfield were always like a team in the 4th division that we seemed to be up against for promotion. And I haven't been to Field Mill for about 30 years, so I'm super excited to go. But I just wondered, from a fan's point of view, an experience point of view, what can the Blackpool fans expect from the ground, from the atmosphere, from the facilities on offer, from pubs, etc. It's always good to kind of get that input, because there's a few of us going, and a lot of us are looking forward to going to a ground we've not been to for a very long time.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think, a few years ago, Mansfield, in fact, I saw the highlights, actually. The club posted them the other day of the last time our guys met in League Two, quite a few years ago now. I think we might have been under Adam Murray at the time. And we don't think we managed to get 3,000 in the ground at that point. It's a sellout now. We sell out week in, week out, because the hunger and desire to come and support Mansfield Town has grown and grown and grown. And so what you'll see a packed house. You'll see a good atmosphere. The Q Block like to sing. When things are going our way, they like to sing. When things are not going our way, it does tend to get a little bit quiet, but it's always a good atmosphere there. And I think depending on when you last visited, there was a redevelopment in the early noughties, but it doesn't really feel like a redevelopment to us. But I think a lot of people say, "Oh, Mansfield's the ground with 3 sides." Now, that horrible advertising wall has been ripped down, and we're now redeveloping Bishop Street. So there's that. In terms of atmosphere and pubs, sadly, with pubs, you're asking the wrong person, because I'm a teetotal and don't drink. But there are a fair few that do welcome away fans. We've got a nice little marquee which we put up in the summer, the Radford Foundation marquee, which I think away fans could be welcome into, and a Sandy's Bowl. Got a little bit of a fan zone outside the ground as well. And it's just a nice little atmosphere, plenty of places to go for a bite to eat and enjoy yourselves. And it's if the sun's shining, Mansfield's not as bad as people make it out to be.
It's 31 years since I went to Field Mill. 1993, I think it might have been a 2-2 draw, but I think we both went up together in 90. So we followed each other up and played each other in what's now League One. So I'm just looking forward to it. It's like an old traditional football ground, and some stadiums are a little bit cold, aren't they? And a bit bland and a bit plastic. But I think yours is a proper old school ground. So I'm more excited than going to your place and some other more modern grounds, because it's just better. Just a bit of a throwback, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it's always a nice place to come, and I think we have redeveloped since '93, but we still have that sort of
I should hope so.
older feel and everything. It doesn't fit. It's not like a bowl or anything. It has got that sort of old style feel to it, and it'd be nice to lock horns again, and hopefully you guys will come and make some noise because when that place is rocking, when both away ends and our fans are rocking, it's a really good atmosphere and makes for a really good game of football as well.
Yeah, we've sold out, I think, over 1,000 or 1,000 going tomorrow as well, so it's going to be pretty decent. I won't mention that in '93, Martin, I was still in nappies, so
So was I. I was 2 in '93.
We're going to end the pod on just one more question for you then. We spoke about your key players. I know you've got a lot injured with the likes of Flint and Lee Gregory, not fingers crossed. But just talk to us about the system that you play then. Obviously, you've shown defensive vulnerabilities just due to those injuries, but what system can we expect to line up against tomorrow? Because me and Martin spoke, I know you were listening a bit pre-pod, we spoke about the fact that we've reverted back to a very simplistic sort of 4-4-2, maybe a 4-4-1-1, etc. But, a very fluid 4-4-2, so to speak, with a lot of creativity out wide of CJ and Apter on both wings. And, of course, the energy of Joe's up front with a pretty organised defence. What can we look to line up against, and how do you think you'll cope with that system?
Well, it'll depend on who's available for Nigel Clough with what system he does play tomorrow. But judging by recent weeks, I think he'll keep with the back five or three, whichever way you want to look at it. 3 centre halves with wing backs. Typically, last season we used to play a flat back four and then a diamond in midfield, or a flat back four and then anything went in front of that. It was almost a free for all at times with the way that he likes to play football. But I'd probably say it's going to be 3 centre backs. Thinking about who's available, be Pim in goal. 3 centre backs of George Williams, Dave, or Des Yoshalaja, as his proper name is. We call him Dave because it's just easier.
I was surprised to pronounce that right, to be fair.
And then Jordan Bowery will be the left side centre back. Elliot Hewitt, right wing back. Lewis Reed will sit just in front of the back three, and then Stephen McLaughlin left wing back. Probably Bacchus, Boateng, and Quinn will be just in front as an advanced midfield, and then it'll be Will Evans and probably Ben Wayne, who's on loan from Plymouth, up front. Or Nigel Clough will have that trump card, and Lee Gregory will just play through it, and he'll be there. But I imagine we'll play that system. We like to get on the ball. We like to try and control possession and press as much as we can. But vulnerabilities wise, obviously Mansfield fans all know what CJ is capable of. I think 99% of us would kill to have him back here, especially in this system. He'd do really well for us. He's very well loved, so I'm hoping he'll get a good reception tomorrow. Also, one of my ever favourite songs with CJ. But pace-wise, Nigel Clough knows that we'll struggle with it, especially second half. So I would probably, if I was Steve Bruce, be thinking maybe try and play through the middle of the first half, and then second half when Hewitt and McLaughlin are looking a bit tired and restless, try and get long balls in behind and try and find a little bit of space to try and exploit it. But it'll be a very good battle, and you know what, I'll be very happy to come away with a point tomorrow.
Yeah, CJ's confidence at Mansfield, despite the league, when he's in front of goal, he used to strike it, finish it. And what we're frustrated with, as we spoke about in this game, is his inability to make a decision up front sometimes.
Where does he play for you guys? What position?
So now left mid. We would have killed to have him at your club last year, if I'm being honest, because Critchley used him at wing back, and he was one of the most honking wing backs I've ever seen in my life. However, we repeatedly said it's not his fault because he's a bloody winger. And this year, obviously, with like 3 goals, I think it is a couple of assists, he's been a constant threat against Huddersfield. He was superb the other night with an assist and a goal, a perfect cross, which is 1 in 10 for CJ. With all due respect to him, he often found himself behind the Lincoln defence on Tuesday, and then he'll just drill a ball completely into no man's land. And but basically for us, when he's playing in a 4-4-2, there isn't one that can probably play in his position now anyway, but 2, I wouldn't really not want him to start with what he offers in behind, and those moments where he is really good, you can't buy that many times, and we haven't got that in the squad other than him either, so he's probably a sure bet to start. But I know, what memories do you have of him? Like, how did he play for you?
I loved him. I mean, he was with us after we had him under Steve Evans, the man who shouldn't be named, the Snake, and he played wing back and sort of midfield that year. Played pretty much on the left wing and or up front at times. And again, he had an electrifying pace. Our song for him was when he runs down the wing, he's as fast as lightning. It's frightening. It's CJ Hamilton. It's my favourite song that we've ever made up for a player. Just really, really good. And he just lived up to it. He thrived on that energy. He was really, really good going forward. Then David Flitcroft came in and we went to a more of a wing back sort of team. And to be fair to him, to be fair to CJ, a lot of the time he was playing, could you believe it, right wing back, because Flitcroft's wing back system was more of an advanced winger. So he would just let him go up the pitch. And to be fair, he did really, really well. And there was only a few times defensively he looked a bit shoddy, but we just knew attack wise he'd always be there for us. So there's nothing but fond memories of CJ. And we were really, really pleased to see him playing in the Championship when he did. And we were surprised that he didn't get a bit of another move to stay at that level. But it's good to see him still thriving week in, week out. And really looking forward to welcoming him back and wish him all the best.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You've been nothing but a pleasure and given us a good insight on Mansfield. I'm devastated to hear you might not have Lee Gregory tomorrow.
Of course you are. I mean, the BAFTA for podcast acting goes right there, Tom, doesn't it?
Thank you. No, genuinely, like whatever tomorrow brings, of course, like to hopefully see the best teams. And I'll be honest, I actually prefer Lee Gregory to Bray than Ben Waine, because we've got Casey and a fire. They'll deal with the long ball in terms of, and deal with the strength, I think, of Gregory a little bit better than pace in behind. So Ben Waine got a good finish on Saturday on Tuesday, in the box. Obviously, he'll be buoyed by that as well. So he'll want to start, of course. So it'll be interesting nonetheless to see what happens. But whatever you have up front, I'm sure you'll give us a good game nonetheless. But again, thank you. If you message me the GoFundMe link, I'll put it on the podcast chat, and we'll contribute some money as well, mate. And Martin might see you in and around the ground tomorrow, and we'll chat offline. But I really appreciate you coming on.
No, thanks for having me, guys. And again, like on behalf of all of the Lashes Foundation, thanks so much for giving that time to share it as well. I know it'll mean a lot. And to all of the fans that are coming down tomorrow, enjoy it. And if you see us around, do say hello. And hopefully we have a nice, good game, and we'll see you for the reverse fixture.
No worries. Thank you, mate. Right, Martin. Last couple of minutes then, as Jazza quite rightly put in the chat, might be worth mentioning before the end of the podcast, obviously the 18-game season ticket, which we spoke pre-pod about, and I totally forgot about just before the preview. So thank you, Jazza. 2 bits of news, obviously, or 3 bits of news. First and foremost, the Bristol Rovers game being called off due to Ballard Ashworth and Apter having call-ups, obviously Apter being very much deserved, and Ballard obviously doing quite well previously, which also means Ballard's probably back tomorrow, which is fantastic to hear, on the bench or potentially even starting the first half, maybe give him some minutes. So interesting to see that our lineup tomorrow, of course. But first and foremost, a really well timed break for the Seasiders, of course, because we need that break with the likes of Norburn injured, etc., and the Coulson obviously having a bad knock on Tuesday, so that's really good. But the two, sorry, someone's put Ballard not back tomorrow. Okay, fair enough. Thanks, Mike. Ruined my evening. But just to
the matches.
I know. So we pretend it's starting tomorrow, Anyway, I want to talk about mainly the Bristol Rovers game, obviously, but the two things which are quite prevalent this week that's happened is the 18-game season ticket, which starts at £299, which is fantastic. Whether it's initiative that they thought of previous to the criticism they got, I see it as them listening and obviously not making a faux pas with the prices. Excellent price, and really good to get the fans down at Bloomfield Road and pushing the attendance potentially past 10k per game.
It made me think though that I just feel that maybe all clubs should have season tickets on sale at all times, and just maybe reduce the price slightly, or have a month where they say, right, is in October it's this price, and then in November it goes down slightly to this price, and just always have that available, because sometimes people are can commit to a season ticket at different times. But yeah, it is good to see that offer. It's still 300 odd quid, isn't it, in the main stand? So I mean, I suppose pro rata, I think I worked it out. Is it about 19 quid a game or 18 quid a game? Someone will correct us if that's not right. But it is. No, of course it is. Of course it's decent. But it makes you, because they only took them off sale a couple of weeks ago. It makes you wonder why they even just bother doing that. just have them on sale and just reduce the price every month and just say, have an incentive to do it earlier, but at the same time make it available, because at Christmas there'll be a half-season ticket, I imagine.
I'm pretty sure
good on them.
It's reflective. Yeah. It's maybe listening to us. I think Sadler realises onto a good thing with Bruce and the team, and they can see actually maybe this is. I mean, obviously the championship season, etc. in the year was amazing, but the first year obviously staying up. But I think he's seen the Blackpool fans excited by decisions the club has made, and every credit to them for potting Critch and bringing in Bruce and making that atmosphere better again. And every credit to them for doing this is reflective, in my opinion. And we've given harsh criticism when they've made these faux pas, but we have to applaud them with decent prices for which isn't £32 a game, which they're charging some people for one-off clashes. So really good work. The final one, of course, is Josh Honomer, an unknown quantity, so to speak, but a part of the England under-20 cup winning team, of course. As someone said, he hit the bar in that final, put that on the wall. But he clearly impressed Bruce enough for Bruce to sign him, because Bruce is no mug, and I don't think he would have signed him unless he was good enough to do so. It's a chance, obviously, in the next couple of weeks to get his fitness back up in terms of playing in the EFL Trophy. Put him into the cup games, etc. But when fit, even if he can do sort of 30, 45 minutes in the next few weeks, months to come, he's going to be someone that's going to add a lot more pitch intelligence to the one we've just spoke about in the likes of Sonny Carey, etc., to enable us to maybe develop our squad further.
Yeah, it's a risk-free signing, isn't it? And it gives us a chance to have a look at him properly. 14 months without playing any competitive football is a long time. And, some of the Preston fans that I know thought that he didn't get enough of a crack of the whip under Ryan Lowe, and that when he did, he looks a real player. He's clearly got talent. Bruce has worked with him at Villa, so he knows him. David Downs knows him inside out. So if anyone's going to get the best out of him, you would expect it to be Steve Bruce. And it's just nice to kind of have that little bonus signing at this time of the season where, most clubs don't, do they? But by now, most of the decent free agents have been snapped up. So I'm excited to see what he can do, because there is a gap there, isn't there? There's a gap in the squad depth in midfield, definitely. So I'm glad. Cool.
As I say, he can certainly push forward as well. There's been times in the past, obviously, when he's found himself in the box, and he's quite an adequate finisher as well. So he should add goals when available. The only caveat to all of this, of course, it's until January. So whether that's a protection mechanism for Blackpool or whether it is he'll sign if he can look at clubs in January, who knows? But I think if he's settled here and he's playing football and we've given him the time, you'd like to think that we extend that if he played well. But like you said, risk-free in terms of seeing what he can do for these next 3 months on the pitch. And if he's not good enough, like you say, it's risk-free. And hopefully it works out, though, because he's obviously got some calibre to be playing in the games he has played in the past in the Premier League, etc. And also Bruce wanted him when fit, when he was at West Brom. So, I think he's a real coup for League One if he's somewhat fit, because he'll add a lot more than a lot of people probably know, because if he was willing to have him in the Championship, he's certainly going to be ridiculous at League One, a bit like Evans, or when you shouldn't really have those players in your squad. So
it's not the ability, it's the hunger, I think, isn't it, with players like that? How hungry are you for it with all the injuries you've had? You've had a few clubs, you're 27, you've played at Spurs, you've played at Villa. How hungry are you? And I think we had, and do you know what? It's so bad, his name escapes me, but the guy, that's the one. And he's been unfairly compared to him simply because they've trodden similar paths, but he didn't seem to have the ability or the desire. So I'm hoping that Onomer has got both of them.
Had
we might have a player on our hands.
Career to back up his journey, whereas
absolutely, he has. So. That's true. Yeah,
right, mate.
I'm all for it.
You've got a long trip tomorrow, or not so long, but a trip tomorrow nonetheless. I have work in the morning and unfortunately finish at 3:00, so I get to watch the game, of course. So that's great. But we'll be back to review this game, and obviously we can have a little break with the international break as well. But it's good to look back on this game because, say it quietly, with the way we're playing and the players we've got, we should have enough to do some damage tomorrow. And I'm hoping that we can see a reaction from the last sort of 15-20 minutes that wasn't horrific, but it'll be good to see us get goals when we're on top in games and and not have a ridiculously good goalkeeping performance like he's already alluded to Christy Pym having a few times. So it should be a good game tomorrow. I hope you enjoy it. I hope Blackpool fans have a safe trip, make lots of noise tomorrow, and I'll look forward to reviewing the game. But thanks for coming on tonight, mate.
No, you're welcome. I'm looking forward to it. It's not that far. Any team that you play in the Bristol Street Motors Trophy or could play, it's not that far. That's what I keep telling myself. It's Northern, Martin. It's Northern. It's it's all right. And yeah, just as final thing as well, if you do see those people rattling the buckets for the Lashes Foundation, please give some money. I'm a dad. Tom's a dad. There's lots of parents out there, and it just sounds like what that Mansfield player went through is horrendous, and something amazing's come out of his daughter's legacy, which is absolutely brilliant. So Blackpool fans always do that. They always chuck their hands in their pockets for great charity. So everyone have a safe journey and enjoy tomorrow.
Sure thing, and we'll make sure we obviously put the link up. Thanks all for tuning in. I genuinely appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. It's great to see the podcast go online and you guys join in as well. So please subscribe to the YouTube channel that you're watching on. If not, the link is on our X if you're watching through X itself. And if you want to join the Patreon, please join. The link is on the front page. Then you'll be part of the WhatsApp group. We do monthly giveaways for tickets, etc. And it's a great community to have a bit of therapy each week, but also meet a great group of friends that you go to the football with every week. But for now, from all of us at the It's Not Orange podcast, have a great evening.